Hey, this is Zero at PGzoneHD. Today I'm going to be talking about some advanced track building tips. Right here at the start I'm showing you the Sky Changer device that you can place inside your toy box. I'm also showing you a sneak peek at the completed track that I'm going to be talking about in this video. But in order to switch the sky to the car's background, someone commented on one of my last videos that it has to be unlocked first in the car's playset, and then you press the button on the Sky Changer and it can change it to that background. I'd assume if you have collected other backgrounds, then it can change it to those as well. In the last track builder tip video I went over some very basic stuff. In this video I'm going to show you a few different things that I figured out over the last couple days. This was the first really complex track that I built that I could race against the computer on. Before I started, I knew I wanted a track that had branching paths so it would give you some shortcut options while racing against the computer. So the first thing I did was build and shape the terrain, and I knew for this track I wanted it to go around the border of a very large square area. And this time I was determined to get the elevated track pieces that slope up and down to work on here. In the last track that I built, I mentioned I had put some of those in my track and I was able to use some of them, but once I started adding more, it stopped the computer race icon from popping up, so I had to delete those out. And I ran into the same problem while building this track. I had to just keep working with it. I'd build a section that looped around about half the size of what you're looking at, and then I would test out the pieces to see if I could get the computer race icon to pop up. And once I was sure that it was working, I'd save my progress, and then I would just extend my track out little by little until I got it all the way around. With some of the pieces they would snap together without the yellow line indicator, but you need to be extra careful when piecing those together that don't have that yellow indicator, because if the pieces overlap, which some of them you can get them to kind of go inside one another instead of snapping end to end, it can cause that computer race icon not to pop up. Once I had my track in place and functional, I first tested it out to see how it handled. If I didn't like how a certain turn or a bump reacted, then I'd make a little change to the track. And again, just always testing to make sure the race icon would still pop up. I also tested it out to see which direction I wanted to race in. I've built some tracks that I ended up reversing the start track piece because they were funner to go in the other direction. But for this one I was pretty happy with the way that it was facing as it was. The next objective was to start building the main features of what would make this track special, starting with the cave that you could either go through or go over right after the first turn in the track. The spacing on how far your car needs to jump to make it across is obviously really important, so I had to do a little bit of tweaking on that. You don't want to make it too difficult to get across, especially right after a very sharp turn in the track. Also wanted some easy set pieces in or around the track that I didn't have to put a whole lot of effort into making, and Mater's tow building was a good choice because it has the two double doors that swing open. You can put the track right through there, which those also cause some issues because if you're behind another car, the doors can slam in your face, so keep that in mind if you're going to use that building in your track. Now for the castle in the corner, I built another section of the track that goes through it and then pieced it together wall by wall, which brings me to my next topic. You can put pieces of your track in your toy box that aren't connected to the main track, and the computer race icon will still pop up and work. I first realized this when my wife built her City of Atlantis track that I showed you guys the other night. I walked in the room and I saw her racing on it, and I noticed she had a short length of track in the middle of the stage, and I was like, how did you do that and get the computer to still race against you? So I have to thank her for bringing that to my attention. That really opens up the possibilities for what you can do on here. As you can see, you can still have the super jumps for your track, although getting the computer to take a path off the main track with you would be really tricky, so I'm not sure if that's possible or how to do that, but I'm sure somebody out there is going to figure it out. It is very important to remember that you can't go too far away from the main track or it will reset your car when you're racing. So in order for me to build that castle and the super jump that's over the main track, I had to move my original track a little bit closer to the castle because it would reset me back to the track when I would get to the end of the inside of that castle. So when you build something away from the track, just make sure to test it out in a race before you spend a whole lot of time messing with it. And after doing a little track testing, I went ahead and added another branching path that would allow you to race through a couple of the car's playset buildings, and I added a lot of taller buildings to the final corner of the track. I also added some fencing, track barriers, more boost pads. I tweaked the placement of the ramps, and then I tested the track out a little more to see if I needed to add any more walls or protection to keep people on the track. And then the final step was to add some more decoration, trees and plants, statues, and whatever else I could toss around into the area to fill it up. Also added some fireworks and confetti areas. And if you notice, my thermometer gauge is only halfway up for this track because I did not place any of the small people or objects that explode. I did add a few of the Cars characters. I think I have maybe 3 or 4 of those on there. But if you do add any of those in there, it can really start adding that gauge up quickly, and the higher that gauge gets, the laggier your racing can be. So you don't always want it at the top, as in having your whole area full of stuff, because it can cause parts of the racing to get really choppy. So I definitely recommend adding anything that explodes or the small people that move around at the very end after you've completed everything else. I still haven't used that many spins in Toy Vault yet, so I'm still missing a whole lot of stuff that would make building a track like this even funner to race on. I could put more detail or even add some more objects that move around. As you can see, the gauge is only halfway up, so I still have a lot of room to put more stuff in here. But up next, I'm going to show you guys 2 races on this track, so stay tuned for that. This is Zero at PGzoneHD, and as always, thanks for stopping by.